Derek Sullivan stood at the head of the conference table, 7 board members watching him present our quarterly results. I sat in my usual corner, taking notes like I had for 9 years. When they asked about succession planning and mentioned promoting me, Derek actually laughed. He looked right at me and said loudly, "Avis? Management material? She's great at execution, but she doesn't have the strategic mindset. She's a doer, not a leader." The room went silent. My face burned. My hands shook. I smiled and said, "Thank you for the feedback," then walked out and started planning. I returned to my desk outside Derek's corner office and just sat there. 9 years of memories crashed over me like a wave. Late nights finishing proposals while everyone else went home. Weekends responding to client emergencies. Answering emails at midnight because Derek promised something impossible and needed me to deliver. My last relationship ended 3 years ago because my boyfriend got tired of canceled dates and interrupted dinners. I was 32 years old with no social life, no hobbies, nothing but this job that apparently saw me as a doer, not a leader. I was a senior project coordinator at a tech consulting firm in Seattle. My role sounded simple on paper, but the reality was different. I managed all client implementations, coordinated between sales and delivery teams, handled escalations when things went wrong. I worked 50 to 60-hour weeks regularly, never saw a penny of overtime. Derek relied on me for everything, but clearly that reliance didn't translate to respect. That afternoon, I did something I hadn't done in years. I opened our employee handbook. Buried in Section 3, I found the official work hours, 8:30 in the morning to 5 in the afternoon. I pulled up my calendar and started calculating. 15 hours of unpaid overtime every week, minimum. For 18 months straight. That was roughly 1,170 hours. At my salary rate, that equaled about $48,000 in uncompensated work. At 4:59 that evening, I closed my laptop, mid-email, just shut it down, packed my bag, and walked out. My phone started buzzing before I reached my car. Derek's message flashed on the screen. "Did you finish the Morrison report?" I read it while sitting in traffic. Then I put my phone in my purse and didn't look at it again. More messages came throughout the evening. 5:15, 6:30, 8:15, 9:42. I silenced my phone, poured myself a glass of wine, and watched a movie I'd been meaning to see for months. When I finally checked my messages before bed, there were 17 from Derek, each one progressively more urgent and confused. Monday morning, I arrived at 8:30 sharp. My inbox had 43 unread emails. I worked through them methodically, responding during business hours, prioritizing based on actual urgency rather than whoever yelled loudest. At 4:59, I saved my work and shut down my computer. 17 emails sat unread. I left them there. Tuesday morning, Derek was waiting at my desk when I arrived. His tie was crooked and he had dark circles under his eyes. "Where were you last night?" Morrison was furious. He called me at home. "I worked my scheduled hours," I said calmly, setting down my coffee. "The report will be finished during business hours today." His face reddened. "That's not how we operate here, Avis. You know these clients expect immediate response. Then perhaps we need to staff appropriately for those expectations," I replied, logging into my computer. "I'm happy to discuss workload distribution with HR if you'd like." He stared at me like he'd grown a second head. "This isn't like you. This is exactly like me. I'm just working sustainable hours now." He walked away without another word, but I could feel him watching me through his office window all day. On Wednesday, I noticed other coordinators glancing at me with a mixture of fear and something that looked like hope. On Thursday, Derek assigned me 3 new projects, all with Friday deadlines. The timelines were impossible to meet within regular hours. He was testing me. I worked steadily through Thursday and Friday, completed what was reasonably possible, and documented what wasn't. At 4:59 on Friday, I closed my laptop with 2 projects still incomplete. I didn't feel guilty. I felt free. Friday night. Derek's phone exploded during dinner with a board member. The Morrison client emailed him directly at 7 in the evening, demanding to know where the implementation timeline was. Derek couldn't find the files. He didn't know the status. He didn't know which vendor we were using or what the dependencies were. He looked incompetent in front of someone who mattered. Saturday morning, Derek called me 6 times. I was at the farmer's market, phone on silent, buying fresh vegetables and actually enjoying my weekend. He left increasingly desperate voicemails. Avis, I need the Morrison files. Call me back. Then, Avis, this is urgent. I need you to walk me through the project status. Finally, Avis, I don't know what's gotten into you, but this is completely unacceptable. I listened to them Sunday evening while meal prepping for the week. Then I deleted them. Monday morning, Derek stormed into HR. I found out later because the HR director, a woman named Susan, called me in that afternoon. Derek was there, arms crossed, looking like a child who'd been sent to the principal's office. Avis. Susan said carefully, Derek has expressed concerns about your recent performance. He says you're not completing assigned work. I'm completing all work that can reasonably be accomplished within my contracted hours, I said. Would you like to see my project log? Susan pulled it up on her computer. Her eyebrows rose higher and higher as she scrolled. You're managing 23 active projects. Yes. Across how many clients? 11. Susan looked at Derek. How many coordinators do you have on staff? 1, he said. Avis. This position used to have 3 people. Susan's voice had changed, gone cold and professional. Budget constraints, Derek said quickly. And Avis was handling it fine. Was she? Susan pulled up more records. According to this, 2 coordinators quit 18 months ago. You never submitted requests to replace them. You just redistributed their work to Avis. She never complained, Derek said. Because I thought it would lead to opportunities, I said quietly. I thought if I proved I could handle anything, it'd be recognized. Last Tuesday, I learned that wasn't true. Susan looked between us. Avis, what are your contracted hours? 8:30 to 5. And you've been working beyond those hours regularly. Yes. Approximately 15 hours per week of unpaid overtime for the past 18 months. Susan did the math on her calculator. Her expression hardened. Derek, this is a serious problem. We need to discuss staffing levels and workload distribution. Avis, thank you for bringing this to light. You're dismissed. As I left, I heard Susan say, Close the door, Derek. We need to talk about labor law compliance. I walked back to my desk feeling something I hadn't felt in years. Power. Week 2 started with an email from Susan asking me to document my typical weekly workload in detail. I spent 2 hours creating a comprehensive breakdown of every project, every client touchpoint, every recurring task. When I sent it to her, I copied myself and saved it in 3 different locations. Derek tried a different approach that week. He stopped by my desk Tuesday morning with coffee, my usual order. Look, Avis. I think we got off on the wrong foot. You're a valuable member of the team. Let's talk about what you need to feel supported. 3 additional coordinators to bring us back to proper staffing levels, I said immediately. Clear role definitions, overtime compensation for hours worked beyond 40 per week, and a formal promotion review. His smile faltered. That's a pretty aggressive ask. It's what's required to do this job sustainably. He took his coffee back. I'll see what I can do. Nothing changed. By Wednesday, my backlog had grown to 38 unanswered emails. Clients were starting to notice. Small fires were becoming medium fires. Derek tried charm, then guilt, then veiled threats. I remained professionally pleasant and completely immovable. What Derek didn't realize was that I'd started documenting everything. Every email he sent after hours, I printed and filed. Every weekend message, I screenshotted. Every impossible deadline, I noted with timestamp and context. I created a spreadsheet tracking 2 years of after-hours requests. The pattern was damning. Derek had built his entire reputation on my unpaid labor. He made promises to clients, then relied on my evenings and weekends to deliver. He was the face of success. I was the invisible engine. By the end of week 2, Derek's carefully controlled image was cracking. He started arriving at 7 in the morning and staying until 8 at night, trying to do the evening work I used to handle. But he didn't know the systems. He didn't have passwords to half the tools. He didn't understand client histories or technical requirements. He sent the wrong file to a client. He missed a critical deadline. He double-booked an implementation date. His assistant, a sharp woman named Rachel, started giving him worried looks. Week 3 brought the real crisis. TechCorp was our biggest client, worth $2.3 million annually. Their implementation was scheduled to launch in 5 days. It required coordination between 4 departments, 16 different deliverables, and precise timing. It managed this exact process for 3 years running. It was always flawless because I spent evenings making sure every piece connected perfectly, every person had the information they needed, every deadline was met. This time, I'd completed my piece during business hours. The technical documentation was done. The training materials were ready. But the cross-departmental coordination that usually happened in evening emails, the gentle reminders and status checks, the problem-solving when pieces didn't align, none of that was happening. Tuesday evening, the TechCorp VP called Derek directly. I was packing up to leave when I heard him through his office door, his voice rising in panic. Well, figure it out. No, I understand your concern. Yes, Friday is still the launch date. I'll personally ensure everything is ready. He hung up and immediately called me. I was in the parking garage. I let it go to voicemail. He tried 3 more times. I listened to the messages in my car before driving home. Avis, I need you to come back. There's a crisis with TechCorp. Avis, pick up. This is serious. Avis, whatever game you're playing, it needs to stop. This client is too important. I went home, made dinner, and went to bed at a reasonable hour. I slept better than I had in years. Wednesday morning, Derek was waiting by the elevator when I arrived. He looked like he hadn't slept. Conference room. Now. HR will be there. Susan was already seated when we entered. She had a legal pad in front of her, filled with notes. Derek closed the door harder than necessary. This is insubordination, he started. Avis is sabotaging projects. She's deliberately letting work fail. I'm working my contracted hours and completing assigned tasks within those hours, I said calmly. You know these projects need evening coordination, Derek snapped. Then perhaps we need to hire additional staff to cover those hours, I replied. Or build more realistic timelines that don't require unpaid overtime. This is about your attitude since the board meeting, Derek said, turning to Susan. She's been difficult ever since I gave her honest feedback about her capabilities. This is about sustainable work practices, I said, and respect for labor law. Susan held up a hand. Derek, I've reviewed Avis documentation. The workload she's managing is substantial. Her performance during contracted hours is excellent. The issue appears to be expectations that exceed reasonable working conditions. This is how our industry works, Derek insisted. Everyone puts in extra time. Unpaid extra time, Susan asked. It's part of being professional, Derek said. It's illegal, Susan replied. And it's creating liability for the company. Thursday afternoon, the TechCorp VP sent an email directly to our CEO, copying the entire board. I saw it because someone forwarded it to me anonymously. The subject line read, Considering contract cancellation. The body outlined repeated delays, lack of responsiveness, and concerns about our ability to deliver. An emergency board meeting was scheduled for Friday morning. Our CEO, a man named Richard who I'd met maybe twice in 9 years, called Derek personally. I could hear Derek's voice through his office door, rising and falling in panic. When he emerged, his face was gray. The board wants to see documentation of departmental workload distribution, he said to no one in particular. They want to understand what's happening. He looked at me. For just a moment, I saw real fear in his eyes. Friday morning, Derek arrived early with a thin folder. He had dark circles under his eyes, and his hands shook slightly. I arrived at my usual time, was called into the boardroom at 9:30. 7 board members sat around the table, Richard at the head. Derek looked like he wanted to disappear. Avis, Richard said, we'd like to understand your role and current situation. Can you walk us through a typical week? I opened my binder. I'd prepared for this. I methodically walked the board through my 23 active projects. I showed them organizational charts I'd created, demonstrating how my role connected to 17 other people across the company. I explained how I'd become the bottleneck, not through incompetence, but because I was always available, always responsive, always willing to stay late, work weekends, answer midnight emails. This is my email timestamp analysis for the past 6 months, I said, distributing copies. You'll see a clear pattern. Derek assigns project requirements late in the afternoon with same-day completion expectations. Meeting those expectations requires evening work. A board member named Patricia studied the data. This shows an average of 4 hours per day beyond contracted time. That's correct. Every day. Most days. Some weekends, too. Another board member, an older man named George, leaned forward. Did you ever refuse these requests? No, I said quietly. I believed I needed to prove I was management material. I looked directly at Derek for the first time since entering the room. I believed if I worked hard enough, sacrificed enough, demonstrated enough dedication, it'd be recognized and promoted. Last Tuesday, during our quarterly meeting, I learned that wasn't true. Derek told this board I was a doer, not a leader. That I lacked strategic mindset. He said this after 9 years of me building strategies he presented as his own, solving problems he took credit for, and maintaining client relationships he claimed to own. Derek shifted in his seat. That's not fair. I acknowledged your contributions. Did you? I pulled out another document. This is the Morrison implementation plan from last quarter. According to the metadata, I created it. You presented it to the client and the board as your strategic vision. This is the TechCorp retention strategy from 6 months ago. I wrote it. You delivered it and received a bonus for innovative thinking. This is the departmental efficiency proposal from last year. My work. Your accolades. The room was silent. Patricia spoke carefully. Derek, can you explain this? He cleared his throat. Avis is a key member of my team. Of course I rely on her input. That's what good managers do. They develop their people and leverage their strengths. Leverage, I repeated softly. That's an interesting word choice. Richard cut in. Avis, what changed? Why did you suddenly start enforcing boundaries? Because I finally understood they were necessary. I spent 9 years believing that exceptional performance would lead to advancement, that dedication would be rewarded with opportunity. Instead, I learned that my dedication enabled someone else's advancement while I remained exactly where I started, doing 3 people's jobs for 1 person's pay and recognition. George asked, what would it take to make this right? Clear job descriptions that reflect actual responsibilities. Proper staffing levels so 1 person isn't doing 3 roles. A legitimate overtime compensation policy. And a promotion to director level with appropriate authority and compensation, acknowledging the leadership I've already been providing without the title. Or, Richard asked. Or I pursue legal action for wage theft and hostile work environment. Derek stood up abruptly. This is blackmail. This is negotiation. Patricia said sharply. Sit down, Derek. Susan entered the room then, apologizing for the interruption. Richard, I have additional information relevant to this discussion. She distributed a packet to each board member. Since Monday, 6 other employees in Derek's department have filed complaints about after-hours work expectations. 3 are prepared to join a potential class action lawsuit. Additionally, I found discrepancies in project attribution. She clicked through a presentation on the screen. These are analysis reports Derek submitted to the board over the past 2 years, labeled as his work. Metadata shows Avis created every one. These are strategic presentations Derek delivered at conferences. Avis built them. These are client relationship reports Derek claimed credit for maintaining. Email records show Avis managed those relationships. Board members flip through pages, expressions darkening. For 9 years, Susan continued, Derek has taken credit for work he didn't do while blocking advancement for the person actually doing it. This isn't just poor management. It's systematic exploitation. George looked at Derek with something close to disgust. Can you even do this job without her? The silence stretched painfully. She's my right hand, Derek finally said. Of course I rely on her. That's not what he asked, Patricia said. More silence. Richard closed his folder. Derek, you're suspended pending formal investigation. Effective immediately. Security will escort you out. Well, be in touch through HR about next steps. Derek's face went white. You can't be serious. Over this? Over labor law violations, credit theft, hostile work environment, and systematic exploitation of multiple employees, Richard said. We're very serious. This is her fault, Derek said, pointing at me. She's manipulating all of you. Derek, Richard said tiredly. Stop talking. Leave now before you make this worse. As Derek gathered his things, he passed my chair. You're destroying my career over nothing, he hissed. I looked up at him calmly. No, Derek. You destroyed your career. I'm just no longer hiding the damage. After he left, Richard turned to me. We need time to investigate properly and determine next steps. Take the rest of the week off. Paid. We'll reconvene Monday to discuss your proposal. I nodded, gathered my materials, and left. In the elevator, my hands finally started shaking. 9 years of holding everything in, keeping everything together, and it had taken less than 2 hours to dismantle the entire structure. I sat in my car in the parking garage for 20 minutes before I could drive. The investigation took 3 weeks. An external HR consultant interviewed all 17 people who worked with me regularly. The pattern that emerged was damning. Derek ruled through fear and took credit relentlessly. Multiple people reported mental health impacts. 2 were on anxiety medication directly related to work stress. 1 woman named Jennifer was in marriage counseling because her husband threatened to leave if she didn't stop sacrificing their family for a job that gave nothing back. Word spread through the company about the investigation and about Derek's suspension. Other coordinators started leaving at 5. Designers stopped answering weekend calls. Developers set automatic email responses after hours. Derek's entire empire of unpaid labor collapsed in days. The projects that had been held together by people's fear and exhausted dedication started falling apart without that invisible glue. For me, maintaining boundaries was getting emotionally easier but still carried weight. I felt guilty when projects ran late, when clients expressed frustration, when I knew I could solve something if I just logged on for an hour in the evening. Years of conditioning don't disappear overnight. My mother called, worried about my job security. Honey, maybe you're being too rigid, she said. Sometimes you have to bend a little to get ahead. I bent for 9 years, Mom, I told her. It didn't get me ahead. It got me exploited. My best friend Sarah was more direct. You're not responsible for problems you didn't create. Derek built a house of cards on other people's backs. It's not your job to keep it standing. I started seeing a therapist. Dr. Martinez helped me process anger I didn't realize I'd been carrying. You sacrificed relationships, health, and happiness for a job that never valued you, she said during our third session. That's trauma. Give yourself permission to grieve what you lost. I grieved the 9 years I couldn't get back. The relationships that ended because I was never present. The hobbies I never started. The life I didn't live because I was too busy living for Derek's approval. Meanwhile, Derek was fighting back. He hired a lawyer and threatened to sue the company for defamation. He claimed I'd coordinated a conspiracy against him, that I was vindictive and manipulative. His lawyer reviewed the evidence and quietly suggested settlement. Derek refused. He was convinced he'd win, that the board would see reason, that his years of success spoke for themselves. His wife Catherine left him, took their 2 kids to her mother's house. I heard about it through the office rumor network. Shed apparently been tired of coming second to his career for years, and the suspension was the final straw. Derek's carefully constructed life was disintegrating piece by piece. In week 6 of the investigation, I got a LinkedIn message from someone I didn't know. Her name was Jordan Pierce. Shed worked under Derek 3 years ago. I saw the news about Derek's suspension. She wrote, I need to talk to you. Can we meet for coffee? We met that Saturday, at a place near Pike Place Market. Jordan was 38, poised, now working for a competitor. She ordered a latte and got straight to the point. Derek did the same thing to me that he did to you. I managed implementations, worked insane hours. He took all the credit. When I asked about promotion after 2 years, he said I wasn't ready, didn't have the presence, wasn't strategic enough. Sound familiar? I nodded, throat tight. I complained to HR. He launched a whisper campaign. Called me difficult, overly emotional, not a team player. Made my life so miserable I quit before filing a formal complaint. I was too exhausted to fight. I'm so sorry, I said. Don't be sorry. Be glad you didn't quit. You did what I couldn't. She pulled out a folder. I kept everything. Emails showing him taking credit for my work. Documentation of unpaid overtime. Messages where he promised promotion then blocked it. If you need testimony, if this goes legal, I'll testify. I stared at the folder. There might be others. There definitely are, Jordan said. Derek's pattern doesn't start with me. I'd bet money on it. That afternoon, I went through old company directories. I found 3 other women who'd worked for Derek, all left within 2 years. I reached out through LinkedIn with careful, private messages. 2 responded. Harper, who worked for Derek 5 years ago. He called me not management material too. Right before I left. Said I was a great worker bee but lacked vision. Melissa, who worked for him 7 years ago. I developed our entire client retention protocol. Derek presented it as his innovation and got promoted. When I asked why I wasn't included in the recognition, he said I'd done the work but had provided the strategic direction. It was my idea from start to finish. 4 women across 6 years. Same pattern. Same exploitation. Same gaslighting. I compiled everything into a comprehensive document. Testimony, evidence, timeline. The pattern wasn't just clear. It was systematic. It was gendered. It was calculated. I took it directly to Richard's office on Monday morning. He read through everything, his jaw tightening. When he finished, he looked up at me. This is worse than we thought. This is who he is, I said. What happened to me wasn't an isolated incident. It's his operating system. Richard called an emergency board meeting for that afternoon. The evidence was overwhelming. The company faced massive liability. Derek's lawyer, seeing the expanded scope, finally convinced him that resignation was the only option that didn't end in complete destruction. Derek still refused. These women are bitter they couldn't cut it. This is a witch hunt. Patricia, the board member who'd questioned him closely during my presentation, looked at him with open contempt. Or you're a predator who's been protected too long. Either way, your employment here is terminated. Effective immediately. For cause. Pack your office today. Derek's suspension became termination. No severance. No references. A permanent mark on his record. He threatened to sue. Company lawyers welcomed it. Discovery would expose everything publicly, destroy whatever professional reputation he had left. His lawyer advised him to walk away. He finally, reluctantly, did. The TechCorp situation resolved when I personally took over their account. I called their VP, a woman named Patricia Morgan, and explained the full situation. Not the corporate sanitized version, but the truth. Your implementation failed because the person managing it was exploiting his team and none of us could sustain that pace. I'm now handling your account directly. Here's what I propose. I walked her through a revised timeline, more realistic and sustainable. I showed her our new team structure with proper staffing. I was honest about mistakes and clear about solutions. She appreciated the candor. This is the first straight answer I've gotten in weeks. Well, continue the contract, but only if you're our point person. 3 other clients heard about the situation and made similar requests. They wanted me, specifically. My boundary setting hadn't made me less valuable. It made clients respect me more. They preferred honest communication and realistic timelines over Derek's overpromising and my exhausted scrambling to deliver. Derek, meanwhile, started a smear campaign. He called former colleagues, trying to poison the well. Avis manipulated everyone. She's vindictive. She coordinated a conspiracy against me because I gave her honest feedback. Most people didn't believe him. A few repeated his claims. My lawyer sent cease and desist letters. Derek's reputation in the Seattle tech industry was destroyed. Recruiters who once courted him stopped returning his calls. His LinkedIn profile became a cautionary tale in industry groups. He was radioactive. 2 weeks after Derek's termination, Richard called me into his office. "We'd like to offer you his position. Director of Client Services. 30% salary increase. Team of 5 reporting to you. Clear boundaries written into your contract, including no expectation of after-hours work without appropriate compensation." I sat with the offer for a long moment. It was everything I'd wanted for years. Recognition. Authority. Money. But was it right? "Can I have the weekend to consider?" I asked. Of course. I drove to Portland that Saturday to visit my college roommate, Emma. We hiked in the Columbia River Gorge, following trails through dense forest to stunning viewpoints. As we sat on a rock outcropping overlooking the water, Emma asked the question I'd been avoiding. "What do you actually want, Avis?" "I don't know," I admitted. I spent 9 years chasing Derek's approval. I never stopped to ask what would make me happy. So ask now. I thought about it. Recognition? I had that now. The board knew my value. Money? Important, but not everything. Power? The idea of managing a team was appealing, but managing within the same culture that enabled Derek felt risky. Freedom. I finally said, "I want to work sustainably, to have a life outside work, to not sacrifice everything for a job." "Then make sure whatever you choose gives you that." Sunday evening, my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. "Is this Avis?" A woman's voice, confident and warm. "My name is Patricia Morgan. We spoke about the TechCorp account." "Yes, I remember. I have a proposition for you. TechCorp wants to hire you as our VP of Implementation. 40% higher salary than what you're making now. Fully remote position. Explicit work hour boundaries written into your contract, with penalty clauses if we violate them. We want your expertise, but we want you healthy and sustainable. We watched how you handled an impossible situation with grace and strategy. That's leadership. That's executive presence. Derek was wrong. You're absolutely management material." I nearly dropped my phone. "I need to hear more." She outlined the role. I'd oversee implementation teams across their entire product line, build processes, mentor managers, shape culture, real influence, real impact, and respect for boundaries built into the foundation. When do you need an answer? I asked. Take a week. This is a big decision. Monday morning, I walked into Richard's office with my decision clear. I'm grateful for the director offer, truly, but am declining. I've accepted a VP position at Tech Corp. He nodded slowly. I understand. Well, be sorry to lose you, but I respect the choice. 2 weeks' notice. Yes. And it'll help transition my projects properly. During business hours only. With appropriate compensation for knowledge transfer. Agreed. As I left his office, I felt lighter than I had in 9 years. I was walking away from the familiar. The safe. The place I'd invested so much in. But I was walking toward something better. That evening, Derek showed up at my apartment building. The doorman called up. There's a Derek Sullivan here to see you. Don't let him in. I said immediately. Understood. Derek waited outside for 2 hours, texting me repeatedly. We need to talk. You're ruining my life. I never meant to hurt you. Please, Avis. I'm losing everything. I didn't respond. My lawyer prepared a restraining order, just in case. Derek started posting vague accusations on social media. Things about cancel culture, false accusations, good men destroyed by lies. Some people supported him. A small but vocal group claimed he was the victim. But I understood something crucial now. Derek would never accept responsibility. He was psychologically incapable of seeing his actions clearly. He genuinely believed he was the victim. That it betrayed him. That his exploitation had been normal management. Understanding this gave me clarity. I couldn't make him see truth. I could only protect myself and move forward. Monday morning of my final week, I walked into the office with my head high. Colleagues stopped by my desk all day to say goodbye, to thank me for what I'd done, to tell me it inspired them to set their own boundaries. Multiple people had already negotiated better terms. The culture was shifting, slowly but visibly. My replacement arrived Wednesday. His name was Marcus Chen, an experienced director from another firm. He was confident, competent, and had negotiated hard before accepting. I read about what happened. He told me during our first meeting. I made sure my contract was airtight. Clear hours, clear expectations. No ambiguity. I trained him thoroughly, showed him systems, introduced him to clients, walked him through each project's history. On my last day, the team threw a goodbye lunch. People shared stories of how it helped them, taught them, supported them. It was bittersweet. As I packed my desk Friday afternoon, Susan stopped by. You changed this place, she said. Not just for yourself, for everyone. I just stopped accepting unacceptable conditions, I replied. That's exactly what changed everything. I walked out at 5 sharp, carrying a box of personal items I'd accumulated over 9 years. I didn't look back. My first day at TechCorp was surreal. I joined a video call with my new team of 12 at 9 in the morning. They were warm, professional, genuinely excited to work with me. We had a productive meeting, covered strategic priorities, discussed upcoming projects. At 5, people started logging off. See you tomorrow, Avis. Have a great evening. Talk Monday. I closed my laptop at 5:03. The apartment stretched ahead of me, empty but full of possibility. I made dinner, actual dinner with vegetables and seasoning, not just reheated takeout. I ate slowly, tasting food instead of gulping it while reading emails. The evening felt strange, almost wrong. Years of conditioning screamed that I should be working, but I wasn't. And nothing terrible happened. The first week, I finished work at 5 every single day. I took hour-long lunch breaks, went for walks, read articles for pleasure, not just industry news. When work emails arrived in the evening, I let them sit until morning. No one complained. No one called it unprofessional. It was just normal. I started rebuilding life outside work. I reconnected with college friends I'd lost touch with. People who'd stopped inviting me to things because I always canceled. Emma organized a weekend trip to Cannon Beach. I actually went. We walked on the sand, explored tide pools, stayed up late, talking about nothing important. It was glorious. I joined a book club that met Thursday evenings at a local coffee shop. The first meeting, I actually read the book, participated in discussion, made plans to attend next month. Simple things that felt revolutionary. I started dating again. My friend Sarah set me up with someone named Andrew, an accountant with reasonable hours and healthy boundaries. Our first date was coffee, easy and low pressure. Our third date was dinner. When my phone buzzed with a work email at 8, I glanced at it briefly. "Everything okay?" Andrew asked. I put my phone away. "It can wait until morning." He smiled. "Good answer." We talked about books, travel, families, dreams, normal conversation that didn't revolve around work crises or office politics. By our fifth date, I realized I was genuinely happy. Not performing happiness or pretending. Actually content. 3 months after starting at Tech Corp, I ran into Derek at the grocery store. It was a Saturday afternoon. I was buying ingredients for dinner with Andrew. Derek was in the produce section, looking at vegetables like they were written in a foreign language. Head lost weight. Looked older. Tired in a way that went beyond physical. Our eyes met. He looked away first, started to walk past without acknowledging me. Something made me speak. "Derek, wait." He stopped, wary and defensive. "I don't hate you," I said. "I hope you're okay." He looked confused, then suspicious. "You destroyed my career. Why would you care if I'm okay?" "Because I'm not vindictive. I never wanted to hurt you. I wanted to stop being hurt." He scoffed. "I never hurt you. I gave you opportunities. I pushed you to be better." I nodded slowly. "I know you believe that. I hope someday you understand what actually happened. I didn't do anything wrong." He insisted. "You're all too sensitive now. Can't handle hard work. Everyone wants everything handed to them. I hope you learn from this," I said gently. "I hope your next team doesn't suffer what yours did." I walked away, leaving him standing there, alone with his cart and his certainty. I felt sad for him, but not responsible for him. That was his journey now. The following Monday, Richard called me. "I wanted to give you an update. Jordan has been hired as the new director of client services." "Jordan Pierce?" I asked, surprised. "Yes. She specifically requested the role after seeing how we responded to your situation. She said your stand made this a place she'd actually want to work." I felt warmth spread through my chest. Jordan had escaped Derek years ago. Now, she was thriving in the space my battle had helped create. "There's more," Richard continued. "The board created a new position, Chief People Officer, dedicated to culture, equity, and work-life balance. We'd like you to consult on implementation, paid consulting, your rates, your schedule. You'd help us build policies that prevent anyone else from experiencing what you did." I considered it carefully. I'd do it part-time, alongside my TechCorp role. Would TechCorp support that? I smiled. "Let me ask." Patricia at TechCorp not only supported it, she encouraged it. "You're pioneering sustainable high performance. Share that expertise. Well, benefit from what you learn helping other organizations." I became a consultant for my former company while thriving as VP at TechCorp. Both roles felt meaningful. I was helping build better systems, creating change beyond my personal situation. Other companies started reaching out. Would I speak at their leadership conference? Consult on their culture initiatives? Share strategies for sustainable productivity? 6 months after walking away from Derek's department, I had more influence and respect than I'd ever had working 80-hour weeks. I was making more money working fewer hours. I had a relationship, friendships, hobbies, and a life that felt full in healthy ways, not overwhelming ways. One evening, Andrew and I were cooking dinner together in my apartment, music playing, wine glasses on the counter, vegetables chopped and waiting. My phone buzzed with an email. I glanced at it. "Work?" he asked. "Yeah. Can wait till tomorrow." He kissed my forehead. "I'm proud of you." "For what?" "For choosing yourself. For building something sustainable. For not letting one person's assessment define your worth." I leaned into him, feeling grateful and content. Derek had said I wasn't management material. He was right. In a way I'd never understand. I wasn't material for his type of management. I was material for something better. Leadership built on respect, sustainability, and genuine development. Leadership that empowered instead of exploited. A year after that humiliating board meeting, I stood on a stage at a tech industry conference in front of 300 leaders and managers. My topic: the hidden cost of hustle culture. I told my story carefully and professionally. Didn't name Derek or the company, but the details were clear enough for those who knew. I spent 9 years proving my worth to someone who never intended to see it, I said, looking out at faces in the crowd. I mistook exploitation for opportunity. I believed suffering was required for success. Some people nodded. Others shifted uncomfortably. The data is clear, I continued, clicking to my next slide. Overwork decreases productivity and quality. Companies with healthy boundaries have better retention, innovation, and outcomes. Treating people humanely isn't just moral, it's profitable. During the question period, a woman in the third row raised her hand. Her voice shook slightly. "How did you find courage to stop?" "I'm in a similar situation right now. I'm terrified of consequences." I paused, choosing words carefully. I didn't feel courageous. I felt broken. Sometimes we change because we're inspired. Sometimes because we can't continue. My breaking point was public humiliation. But yours doesn't have to be. I looked directly at her. Start small. One boundary. Enforce it consistently. Document everything. Know your worth. Prepare for pushback. And remember, people who respect you will respect your boundaries. Those who don't weren't really respecting you anyway. She nodded, eyes glistening. After the talk, people waited to speak with me. Multiple attendees shared similar experiences. A man in his 50s told me his daughter was in a situation like mine and he was sending her my contact information. A woman handed me her card and asked if I'd consult for her company. "We don't want to be the organization that breaks our best people," she said. That evening, sitting in my hotel room reviewing messages and connection requests, I received an unexpected email. From Catherine, Derek's ex-wife. We'd never communicated before. "I saw your conference talk online," she wrote. "Thank you for telling the truth about what Derek did. Our marriage ended because of his work, obsession, and his need to prove himself by dominating others. He's in therapy now. The custody arrangement requires it. Your actions gave me courage to leave and set boundaries for our children. He's starting to understand the damage he caused. Long road ahead, but there's hope." I read it twice, unexpected tears forming. I hadn't set out to change Derek. I'd set out to protect myself. But consequences had created space for growth. What he did with that space was his choice, but at least the possibility existed now. That night at dinner with Andrew, he asked if I had any regrets about how everything unfolded. "I regret not setting boundaries sooner," I said after thinking. "I regret letting fear control me for 9 years, but I don't regret standing up. Everything I have now exists because I valued myself enough to demand better." He reached across the table, took my hand. "I'm proud of you." Simple words, profound impact. This was what partnership looked like. Support without exploitation, Respect without conditions. Sunday morning, I sat in my favorite coffee shop near the water, journaling and reflecting. A year ago, I'd been invisible, exhausted, unrecognized. Now I was visible, rested, respected. The path from there to here had been painful, but necessary. I wrote down key lessons. Your worth isn't determined by how much you sacrifice. Boundaries aren't selfish, they're essential. People who exploit you will never voluntarily stop. Sometimes burning down what you built is the only way to build something better. You can't save yourself and protect your abusers simultaneously. Real leadership empowers others instead of extracting from them. The life you save by setting boundaries is your own. My book came out 8 months later, After Hours. Finding Success Beyond the Hustle became a surprise bestseller, particularly among young professionals navigating toxic workplace cultures. The literary agent I'd worked with called it the right message at the right moment. I called it accidental timing. Either way, it resonated. The book tour took me to 18 cities. Each event brought new stories, new connections, new evidence that what I'd experienced wasn't unique. At a reading in Austin, a man in his 40s told me he'd quit his management job after reading my book. I realized I was becoming Derek, he said, taking credit, demanding unsustainable hours, justifying it as developing people. Your book was a mirror I needed. In Boston, a recent college graduate thanked me for giving her language to identify red flags in job interviews. I just turned down an offer because they kept emphasizing we're like a family here and we work hard, play hard. Your book taught me those are warnings, not selling points. At TechCorp, I'd been promoted to Senior VP of Operations, overseeing implementation, client success, and employee experience. My team had grown to 32 people across 5 departments. We had the highest employee satisfaction scores in the company and the lowest turnover rate. Sustainable success was possible. We proved it daily. My former company had transformed significantly under new leadership. Jordan thrived as director, implementing policies I'd consulted on. They hired the chief people officer, a woman named Dr. Sarah Williams, who took culture seriously. 3 managers who'd enabled Derek's behavior were quietly moved to roles without direct reports. The organization wasn't perfect, but it was genuinely better. I maintained consulting relationships with 7 companies, helping them audit cultures and build sustainable practices. The work was meaningful, using my painful experience to create systemic change. Each organization I helped meant fewer people experiencing what I had. One Thursday evening, Andrew and I attended my book club meeting. We'd been together almost 2 years now. Recently moved in together. Had read my book before we started dating, which he admitted had intimidated him initially. I thought you'd be intense, all business, no time for relationship, he said. I'm glad I was wrong. Our life together was beautifully ordinary. Shared cooking, weekend hikes, quiet evenings reading on the couch. He was preparing for a partner track promotion at his firm. I supported him the way he supported me, with encouragement but without sacrifice of self. That Saturday, I received a LinkedIn message from someone unexpected. Derek. The message was brief. I read your book. I'm in a different place now than I was 2 years ago. Therapy has been difficult but necessary. I want you to know, I understand now what I did. I'm not asking forgiveness. I'm just saying I finally see it. I'm sorry. I stared at the message for a long time. Part of me wanted to ignore it. Part of me was curious. I showed it to Andrew. What do you want to do? He asked. I don't know. Does he deserve a response? That's not the right question. Do you want to respond? I thought about it. Maybe. But not to absolve him. To acknowledge growth, if it's real. I replied simply, thank you for saying that. Real change is hard. I hope you're building something better. He responded hours later. I'm trying. Working at a nonprofit now. Much smaller scope. learning to lead differently. Probably too late to fix my reputation, but maybe not too late to actually be better. I didn't respond further. That conversation was complete. Derek's journey was his own now. I hoped he was genuinely changing, but I wasn't responsible for his redemption arc. A year and a half after my conference talk, I received an invitation to speak at a TEDx event. The topic: Sustainable Success in the Age of Hustle. I spent weeks preparing, refining my message, practicing delivery. The day of the talk, I was surprisingly calm. Standing on that red circle, looking out at the audience, I felt the weight of every person who'd shared their story with me, every employee trapped in exploitation, every leader who wanted to do better but didn't know how. We celebrate overwork in this culture, I began. We glorify the 70-hour weeks, the answered midnight emails, the sacrificed vacations. We call it dedication, commitment, paying your dues. But I'm here to tell you that it's often something else entirely. It's exploitation dressed up as opportunity. I shared my story. I presented data on productivity, health outcomes, retention rates. I made the case that sustainable work wasn't just kinder, it was smarter. The question isn't whether you can work 80 hours a week, I concluded. The question is, why should you? What are you sacrificing? Who benefits from your exhaustion? And what could you build if you had energy left over for creativity, relationships, and life itself? The talk went viral. Within a week, it had over 2 million views. My inbox exploded with speaking requests, consulting inquiries, media interviews. I was careful about what I accepted, applying my own boundaries to this new phase. Sustainable success meant sustainable, even in success. 3 months later, Andrew proposed during a weekend trip to the San Juan Islands. We were hiking at sunset, overlooking the water, and he simply said, "I want to build a life with you. A sustainable, balanced, joyful life. Will you marry me?" I said yes immediately. We married 6 months later in a small ceremony with close friends and family. No work talk allowed, just celebration of partnership and future. 2 years after Derek's termination, I received a call from Patricia. The board member Wood questioned him so incisively. "I wanted you to know. We've established an annual award in your name, the Avis Sutherland Award for Professional Courage. It recognizes employees who speak up about workplace issues despite personal risk. The first recipient is being announced next week." I was speechless. I don't know what to say. Say you'll come to the ceremony. These employees need to see that courage can lead to positive outcomes, not just career destruction. I attended, met 5 award recipients, each with their own story of standing up despite fear, each making their workplace better through their bravery. I felt connected to something larger than myself, part of a movement toward better treatment and respect. That evening, reflecting on the journey from humiliated employee to recognized leader, I realized something profound. Derek had been right about one thing. I wasn't management material. Not for his type of management. I was material for something better. Leadership that lifts instead of exploits. Success that sustains instead of destroys. Power that empowers instead of diminishes. I pulled out my journal and wrote, 2 years ago, I was told I wasn't enough. Today, I know I am. Not because I changed who I fundamentally was, but because I stopped accepting assessments from people who couldn't see me clearly. My worth was never the question. Their ability to recognize it was. The next morning, I woke up next to my husband in our home, prepared for a day of meaningful work with healthy boundaries, surrounded by genuine relationships and real respect. It built a life that felt full without being overwhelming, successful without being exhausting, impactful without being self-destructive. Derek had meant to diminish me with his words in that boardroom. Instead, had freed me. His cruelty became the catalyst for my transformation. His exploitation became the foundation of my advocacy. His inability to see my worth became the reason I learned to see it myself. I didn't destroy Derek's career. I revealed that it was built on a foundation of others' uncredited labor. When I stopped providing that foundation, the structure collapsed under the weight of truth. My career, built on my own merit and maintained through healthy practices, thrived. The difference wasn't talent or dedication. The difference was foundation. His was sand. Mine was stone. That's what I teach now in every keynote, every consultation, every conversation with someone trapped in a similar situation. Build on stone. Know your worth. Set boundaries. Demand respect. Create sustainable success. The life you deserve is waiting on the other side of your fear. And to anyone still in their own version of my story, still answering those midnight emails, still sacrificing everything for someone else's advancement, still believing suffering equals dedication, I say this: you are already management material. You are already enough. The question isn't whether you have what it takes. The question is whether you'll demand to be treated like you do. Your worth isn't determined by how much you endure. Set boundaries. Demand respect. Build sustainable success. You deserve better, and better is possible. I'm proof. So I'm curious, and I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Have you ever been in a workplace situation where you felt undervalued or exploited? What boundaries did you set, or what boundaries do you wish you'd set? Share your story below. Your experience might help someone else find their courage. And if this story resonated with you, if it gave you something to think about or made you feel less alone in your own workplace struggles, please consider liking this video. It helps others who need this message find it. Subscribe to the channel for more stories about finding strength, setting boundaries, and building the life you deserve. And share this with someone who might need to hear it. Sometimes we all need permission to value ourselves. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope it gives you courage to write your own ending, one where you're not just surviving, but genuinely thriving. You're worth fighting for. Don't forget that. Until next time, take care of yourself. You deserve it.